Welcome to DNX.Solutions podcast, leading the way in cloud modernization services.
Hey everyone, welcome to the DNX podcast. My name is Kelly Griffin. I'm the CTO here at DNX. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Shannon Zorn, who is our security practice lead. How are you, Shannon?
Hey, I'm doing good. Still a little jet lagged as I got back a couple days ago and had some travel fun, as you know, with canceled flights, emergency landing, and a little bit of sickness involved. But I'm back and ready to go.
Mate, never a dull moment with air travel at the moment, really, is it? And especially, man, if you're trying to get from the US back into Australia, that's a long trip, mate.
Yeah. It's funny because Gareth, who's the CEO of our partner CloudTrace, had a lot of issues with American Airlines, and I was like, oh, I've never encountered those issues with AA. And then next thing you know, I've got an emergency landing with American Airlines. I have a missed flight, and canceled flight, and Qantas had to actually step in and get me back on time. So. Yeah.
Wow. Well, mate, it's good to have you back in the country and back in our time zone, which is nice. Which means that we can do this at a more reasonable hour for the both of us, which is quite nice. But, mate, I want to get stuck in. This is a follow-on from the podcast that we did recently, which looked at all of the announcements and the sessions from Inforce 2024, which is the security conference in the US from AWS. There's a particular session that you and I have been sort of talking about, and I'd love to dive into it, if we can for this podcast, because there's some really cool tidbits that I think, our listeners would love to hear it, and, certainly stuff that we're talking about with our customers. And it's all around accelerating innovation security. So it's a pretty interesting topic. And I know this was a joint session from JPMorgan Chase, and correct me if I'm wrong, and let's get into this a little bit more. There was mention of embedded security, how you drive that through innovation processes. Can you elaborate on just how AWS and JPMorgan Chase integrate those security measures?
Yeah. So there's two prongs. Of course, you've got the AWS strategies that we know here at DNX, right? And our strategy at DNX, which aligns exactly what AWS talked about in this discussion, one of the biggest parts was customer-centric approach. Of course, a lot of people say, that's always an approach, but our strategy here at DNX is to start with the customer journey, ensure that security measures are aligned with customer needs. My security team's roles are to support engineering and service teams effectively. And these are the key drivers of innovation internally and with our clients, and of course, those of AWS. Another part that AWS added to this was, of course, continuous improvement. We at DNX focus on collecting metrics that help us gauge the impact of security controls on, our innovation timelines. It's continuous integration or iteration and improvement of these that help us ensure they remain effective and non-obstructive to our customers. This is, of course, something we picked up from AWS and that we inherently do here at DNX. And they kind of talked about this in depth. Another big part of accelerating innovation securely that AWS spoke about was certification and compliance. And as you know, AWS undergoes extensive certification processes, including ISO, SOC, and God knows, probably 100 other frameworks that helps us attest to the security measures they have in place on the ground, in their data centers and in their business units. And that helps us at DNX demonstrate a commitment to continually refining our processes and their processes and meeting those stringent security standards, regardless of the regional locations of the originating service, and of course, the framework that it aligns to. Another part that AWS added to this was the utilization of their services, right? They build these services securely, and they offer various services like Control Tower, AWS Organizations, CloudFormation, Config. You've got CloudTrail, IAM, some of the traditional ones, and of course, you the fine-grained security, service control policies, SCPs, that help us maintain security while also enabling innovation and kind of giving them guardrails. They feed into a framework that can be used to secure the use of our customers' resources or our resources. And it ties right into what JPMorgan had to say as part of their strategy. And their strategy added on top of what AWS discussed is the standardization of processes, right? They
Interesting.
emphasize, they emphasize the development of centralized processes and tooling mechanisms that they federated throughout their own business. And of course, this adds consistency and allows different teams to use services efficiently without compromising on security.
Interesting. So if you've got standardization around the frameworks and the compliance measures
Mhm.
across the organization, and everybody sort of adhering to those measures and policies and frameworks, in theory, that's your boundary, right? That's your guiding principles in terms
Mhm.
of, what you're allowed to innovate with or through, correct?
Yeah, yeah. And it's hard to federate this if you don't have it standardized, because then every business unit is doing things a little bit differently, and then some may inherit much more risk
Yeah.
to their innovation, than others. I guess an example of this could be using AWS Control Tower to maintain governance and adherence to security policies across multiple accounts or business units. It provides an effective way, I guess, to set up and govern a multi-cloud AWS environment based on the best practices that you come up with.
Yeah.
Um, and another big one, I guess, JP Morgan discussed or added on top of what AWS presented was, balancing risk. You know,
Interesting.
yeah, JP acknowledged, the dual risks of security and business continuity, and they highlighted that while security is paramount, it's equally important to adopt the latest technologies to avoid falling behind rivals. Yeah,
That
this balance. Oh, go ahead.
That's an interesting topic, man, because like how do you really find the right balance, right, between staying secure, because you've got your
Mhm.
compliance measurements and stuff, and you've got your auditing, and you've got to maintain compliance, and you've got those
Mhm.
frameworks in place. So you've got to protect the business ultimately and protect the customers, the business's
Mhm.
customers. So how do you maintain that balance between staying secure and don't get left behind by some of the technology? And we've seen that in the past, right, with a lot of
Yeah.
regulators, for example, that
Mhm.
have, and this is sort of the old school, and I'm talking, a few years ago when cloud was
Yeah.
sort of first come out, it's like the regulators and compliance frameworks just weren't there. So how do they
Mhm.
find the right balance? Like, how did they sort of go through that?
Yeah, it's really tricky. And as I said, you're never going to get it 100% right. But if a lot of it's continuous feedback from your engineering teams or those that are helping you build the products or innovate. Listen to your employees. A lot of C suite guys will be like, oh, this is how I think our strategy is going to align. This is what we need to do. But a lot of companies don't effectively listen to the guys that are actually doing the work and saying, hey, we need to innovate. We're starting to fall behind. We're hearing chatter that our competitors are doing this and that. And that's the balance. So you have to uh, create sessions internally to make sure that you're still innovating, while at the same time, of course, putting in effective security measures. A great example of this is Kodak. That's kind of an old school. Remember when they allocated a huge amount of investment towards resources and technologies with traditional film technology, right? As while at the same time digital film was growing, this was kind of a resource allocation risk. And there was people inside Kodak that were like, "Hey, man, digital film." Like, this is not a good idea. They didn't listen to it, but the C-suite guys, the guys on top, were like, "No, man, we're gonna own traditional film."
Yeah.
And so they did. They were the market leader in film and knew this, but with digital photography growing, it required a shift in focus, and they were
Uh,
too cautious. And as opposed to investing in those new technologies, they failed to allocate resources towards digital innovation, and it resulted, of course, in a huge missed market opportunity. And I remember using Kodak, the traditional film cameras, and then all of a sudden I saw this Fuji film and this
yeah.
Canon digital camera, and I have a little memory card, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And it does show how old I am, but it was cool, right? So that's one example of how you can really stifle innovation. So
You and me both, mate. We're nice and old. That's fine. We're able to show our age, man, in these type of sessions. That's fine. It's funny that, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
we talk about disruptors, and this is going completely off topic. Man, we'll come back
yeah,
to the topic in a moment. Man,
hmm
look at BlackBerry.
yeah,
Like a few years ago, like they had the market, right, in terms
hmm
of a completely isolated secure network,
hmm
a tool set that was working, and then all of a sudden, mate, they just got disrupted,
yeah,
just because of customer experience ultimately that completely changed it. Now, that wasn't
hmm
obviously because that that was, well, to a point, there was an element of we've got this security value prop
Mhm.
that we're aligning to, but the problem was that stifled their innovation. That stopped them from doing anything else, man. They just got left behind. So that's pretty sad to see.
It is, and they had engineers telling the executives that, hey, we're falling behind. And I was in the government. I was working for the Cyber Command
Hmm.
when they set that up in I think 2008, 2009. We were using Blackberries, and all of a sudden I started seeing people switching from Blackberries, the government officials switching from Blackberries to iPhones.
Yeah.
Because Apple took that risk and it paid off. And BlackBerry was like, nah, we're going to stick with our traditional subset of what we're good at, even though the engineers were like, hey, we need to hire other people to help us innovate a little bit more. And
Yeah,
they didn't
exactly.
listen. Yeah.
No, they didn't listen, and you could argue that was that secure mindset, right? And they just went, nah, stick to this, and yeah, got lost in innovation. Anyway, let's get back to topic, man. Let's get back to
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
this session that you're at, that accelerating innovation securely topic. During
Yeah.
the session, man, and I've gone through the topic as well, and I've gone
Mhm.
through because there's a YouTube video that you can actually go a little bit deeper into this. They emphasize that innovation should always start with the customer, and we talk about this all the time, right? Like
Mhm.
internally, one of our top values, our first value is customer first and customer always.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, as you understand the customer journey, that's obviously pivotal to implementing effective security measures, because
Mhm.
the boundary of security, particularly in the cloud, is gone, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore. So
Yeah.
can you discuss or just sort of elaborate for a bit here on how focusing on the customer really helps to design and define security protocols that not only protect, but also, if you think about the customer experience, that gets enhanced because of the security protocols that you're looking at?
Yeah, yeah. So they talked about designing a strategy based off the customer and understanding the systemic risks to a business based on that design, and how organizations find the right balance between staying secure and ensuring they're not left behind. And of course, AWS stepped in and they talked about, of course, we're customer-centric security integration focused. We emphasize starting with this customer journey to ensure that security measures are aligned with customer needs. And it forces us, even here at DNX, to make sure that the security we enable for the customers actually support the innovative features desired by them rather than obstructing them. And they added to that by using an iterative approach or improvement and collecting metrics, right? AWS, as you know, continuously collects metrics to assess the impact of security controls on innovation timelines overall. They have a whole center designed to do that. They analyze the metrics and they continuously iterate and improve their tool sets. So yeah, it's and of course centralizing federated security frameworks. That's kind of where JPMorgan stepped in, where they talked about how they employ a centralized security framework that defines key security policies and compliance requirements at the corporate level.
Mm.
And we already talked about like balancing risk and innovation and automated security and compliance tooling. Both AWS and Chase kind of stepped in and gave examples of that. So definitely would like, if you're interested, definitely watch that video. They really dig deep into it. I think it's about an hour long.
Yeah, awesome. So for those who are looking for that online, if you want to go deeper
Mhm.
on this one, if you go to YouTube, look for Reinforce 2024 Accelerating Innovation Security, and it's featuring JPMorgan Chase. Awesome session. Shannon, mate, I think that's all we've got time for, man.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for joining.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing your insights, particularly this session, man. It's a really interesting one where we think about providing that compliance framework, providing the guiding principles, and
Mhm.
safeguarding obviously the customer, but not
Yeah.
stifling innovation, right? And getting left behind from a technology perspective. So,
Mhm.
mate, thank you again, man. Can't thank you enough.
Yeah, no worries. If anyone wants to work with DNX, you know where to get a hold of us on DNX.Solutions. You could go to my LinkedIn page and reach out. But the good thing about working where we work is we get to see this stuff from the top, right? We're working with numerous clients. I mean, I would say 40 plus clients right now, and we get to see a lot. We get a lot of data that helps us improve the services we provided, and of course the internal structures within these organizations. So definitely reach out to us. And yeah, it was good talking to you. It's a great discussion.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like we think about customer experience, so we try and take and repeat everything that we do at other customers and learn from other customers as well. And the next customer is going to benefit from the stuff that we've been doing with a lot of these customers as well. So, so folks, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, take care, stay safe. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. See you guys.
Thanks for listening to the DNX Solutions podcast. Follow us on socials or visit DNX.Solutions for more.